Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are going to discuss character sketch of Macbeth. In exams, questions comes that write a character sketch of Macbeth. So we'll discuss it. The character of Macbeth is the most complicated one that Shakespeare has ever portrayed, with the exception of Hamlet. Shakespeare's Macbeth is among his most ideal and distinguished heroes. He is a great man of strength, courage, nobility, and power, but he was destroyed by the presence of an innate weakness brought into touch with the unique hostile circumstances intended to bring him down. Macbeth is a Scottish general and Thane of Glamis, who is led to wickedness and wicked thoughts by prophecies of three witches, especially after their prophecy that he will be mad Thane of Cawdor come true. Macbeth is a brave soldier and a powerful man, but he is not a virtuous man. He is not a good man. He is easily tempted into murder to fulfill his ambitions to the throne of Scotland. And once he commits his first crime, that killing of Duncan, and then he is crowned king of Scotland, he embarks on further atrocities like killing of Banquo and killing of Macduff's wife and children with increasing ease. Now, ultimately, Macbeth proved himself better suited to battlefield than to political intrigues. Macbeth was better suited to doing wars and battling than doing politics and being king, because he was not a benevolent king, and because he lacks the skill necessary to rule without being a tyrant. He became tyrant. Once he became king, he became a tyrant, and so it was not good for any country. His response to every problem is violence and murder. Unlike Shakespeare's great villains, such as Iago in Othello and Richard III in Richard III, Macbeth is never comfortable in the role as a criminal. So, Shakespeare has written many more tragedies like Othello and Richard III. These tragedies are very great tragedies. And these tragedies, there are villainous character like Iago and Richard III. So they were very comfortable with their criminal mind and attitude, but Macbeth is not comfortable with crime. He has a strong guilty conscience. He is unable to bear the psychological consequences of his atrocities, of his mayhem, of his murders. He is very disturbed. He is all the time disturbed. He never enjoys being a king. Macbeth is a general in King's army and originally the Thane of Glamis. Glamis was a state and he was a Thane. Thane means a ruler under a king. He's a sub-ruler kind of things. So in Hindi we can say Nawab. As a reward for his valiant fighting, describing in the opening scene, Macbeth is also named as the Thane of Cawdor. So he became Thane of Cawdor later on. Appropriately, the former Thane of Cawdor was a traitor to the crown who appeared loyal. Earlier, there was another Thane of Cawdor and he betrayed King Duncan, so he was executed, and ultimately Macbeth became king. Macbeth became Thane of Cawdor. At heart, Macbeth does not deserve the adjective evil. He was not evil in his heart. Undoubtedly, he commits regicide. He killed his king Duncan, and ultimately gives order to kill both mother and children, and he kills Macduff's wife and children. However, unlike Iago from Othello or Edmund from King Lear, Macbeth is not a clearly evil character. So there are another names of Shakespeare tragedy like Othello again, and there is a King Lear. They are great tragedies of Shakespeare. In Othello, there is a villain, again villain. He is a very villainous character and he is very evil. There is nothing good in him. And then in the King Lear, there is a villainous character called Edmund, and he is also very evil character. But they are very comfortable with their evilness and they were their devious character. But Macbeth is not a clearly evil character. His initial crime is the result of opportunistic prophecies of witches. He became criminal only because prophecies of witches or we can say a personal fault. He has a personal flaw or a fault in himself, like a vaulting ambition, excessive ambition. He was excessive ambitious, and undoubtedly Lady Macbeth influences. And one major influence was Lady Macbeth. And Lady Macbeth, once she heard about the prophecies of witches, she all the time influenced her husband that you must do something, you must kill king, like that. Now he is then forced to carry out additional crimes, like killing of Banco, then killing of Macduff's son and his wife, and many more killings, and even the killing of chamberlains of Duncan. In effort to hide his crime and thwart the predictions of the three witches, which they did on second meeting. So later on, he committed crimes to safeguard his kingship and to remain clean in eyes of subjects. Now he has now let's discuss about the heroic character about Macbeth. So Macbeth is a man of indefatigable courage and formidable valor. And Macbeth is a very brave person, and he is a brave man's standard and courageous beyond the ordinary bounds of courage. So he is a very bold and courageous character, and Macbeth is undoubtedly hero of the play, which so proudly bears his name. In comparison to the stature of Macbeth, all other characters are dwarf, Lady Macbeth included. Macbeth is a cousin of King Duncan, and their mothers being sister. So they are cousins. So Duncan and are cousins, and he is a general of extraordinary power, whose mettle has been proved in many battles. The bleeding sergeant calls him a valiant minion. So in this way, he was a very brave person, and he is a yielding hero of fierce, bloody wars and adventures. His sword spit fire on the battlefield. Describing Macbeth's feats in war as a captain, says to Duncan, brave Macbeth, disdaining fortune with his brandised steel, which smoke with bloody execution, like a valor minion, carved out his passage. Now, move forward. This shows that he is a great general of King's army, King Duncan's army, and everybody praised him for that. Now, his ambition. And another characteristic is his ambition. A very important feature of Macbeth character is his excessive ambition. He was excessively ambitious. He is by temper too ambitious, and his ambitions gradually develops into passion. In prophesying that Macbeth would be king of Scotland, the weird sister or witches rightly touched the weakest point in Macbeth's heart. So at heart, he had a feeling that he can become king of Scotland, and it begins to take a definite shape when Lady Macbeth studied his wavering purpose by wellering of his tongue. Macbeth himself confesses that I have no spur to prick the side of my intent, but only vaulting ambition which overleaps itself and fall on other. Well, means he was drawn to kill King Duncan only because of his ambition and nothing else. Yet his ambitions might not have been strong enough by itself to tempt him to crime, that crime of killing a king. It is weakness of will. He was weak at his will, which is more responsible for his crime. So he was not strong in his willpower. Lord Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, ambition is like a worm that slowly eats away at their moral compass. They became immoral because of their ambitions. In Act 1 and Scene 3, Macbeth and fellow General Banquo meet three witches who plant this worm of ambition in Macbeth's mind. The witches greets Macbeth with title Thane of Cawdor and claim he will be king of Scotland. All hail Macbeth that shall be king hereafter. To Macbeth, Both titles seemed beyond his grasp. He thought that he is not a king of that Cawdor, and he is not a king of Scotland either. How would you respond if you met a stranger on the street who told you that you eventually become chief minister of and then prime minister of India? How would you believe it? Do you believe it or not? No, but Macbeth believed it. And Macbeth is skeptical of the three witches' predictions and demands more information, but they vanishes into air. So he requested them that you must explain why you did, why you told me so. You must explain. But those witches were very wicked, and they vanished into air. While Macbeth and Banquo are discussing the strange women, that weird sisters, a messenger arrives hailing Macbeth, addressing Macbeth as a Thane of Cawdor, providing one of their predictions true and planting a worm in Macbeth's mind that now earlier he was a Thane of Cawdor, then earlier he was Thane of Glamis, then he became Thane of Cawdor. Now he can become King of Scotland also if he try. Uh, if he tries, Macbeth thought immediately turned to murder. So he thought that there was only way to become a king is killing King Duncan. And he says, my thought whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in a surmise, and nothing is but what is not. Now, when King Duncan of Scotland names his own son Malcolm as a heir, this is pronounced heir. Now, murder now seems the only solution. So, when King Duncan pronounced that his elder son would become king of Scotland later on, and now he is destined to become Prince of Cumberland. He is now Prince. Then this news was very. Macbeth was very disturbed by this news. Still, Macbeth hesitates. Regicide, that a killing of a king is a great betrayal. However, Macbeth's wife continues to feed the worm, and together they plot the king of death. So all the time, Macbeth's wife instigated him that you must kill. Then only you can become king. Now you are just a servant to King Duncan. There is nothing good in being a servant all your life, all those things. Now another characteristics, weak will. Macbeth was weak at will, yet in spite of this vaulting ambition, this excessive ambitions, Macbeth is weak of will. He lacks determination, at least in the early part of drama. Earlier in the early part of drama he lacked determination, and he aspires for a crown of Scotland. He wanted to become king of Scotland, but he hesitates in his resolve. He was not ready to kill Duncan. He just thought that if my fate is to become king, I will become king anyway. The very thought of murder frightens him. He was frightened because he thought that killing such a benevolent king Duncan is not good at all. Even God will not forgive him. He decides to murder Duncan in order to capture his throne, but just in a scene, he comes out with a decision, and he tells Lady Macbeth that we will proceed no further in this business. We will not kill we will not kill King Duncan. He wanted to postpone this thought. It is due to this weakness that Macbeth fall an easy prey to prophecies of witches and to criminal provocation of his wife Lady Macbeth. So there was a great fall with Macbeth, and he was not good at will. He was not a person of a strong will, and so he became easy prey to witches and even Lady Macbeth. Now another characteristic, superstitious. Macbeth was a very superstitious person, and yet another weakness is Macbeth is that he is superstitious. He accepts the prophecies of witches as a truth. Banquo was also with Macbeth when they were coming from the heath. They were meeting witches, and witches even told that Banquo's son will become king one day. But Banquo was not at all interested in prophecies of witches. He was interested to some extent, but not. He was not ready to kill anybody, and a king to so that his children will become king. But Macbeth was superstition, and he believed them completely. He is a bit skeptical about them earlier, but when two prophecies of witches became true, he started trusting them. Two prophecies that he will become thin of powder, and so he started trusting them, and therefore he visits the deserted land to get advices about his future course of action. Now about tyranny. He was a tyrannic man. His tyranny. Macbeth fulfills his ambition by murdering his king Duncan, and then to secure his throne, he commits further murders. Murder after murder, he became serial killer. First Banquo, then Macduff's wife and children. Naturally, he begins to rule as a tyrant and isolates and alienates his courtiers and subjects. He was not interested in welfare of country. He was not interested in welfare of his courtiers and subjects. He was interested in welfare of himself and welfare of Lady Macbeth only. And he became total tyrant. In Hindi, we can call Tanasha. Then a man of conscience. The most positive feature of Macbeth's character are his glowing imagination. He was a very imaginative man. He hallucinates and a lively conscience. He had a very lively conscience. Although he murders the king Duncan and slaughters Macduff's wife, children, butchers Banquo, butchers chamberlains of Duncan, yet the forces of moral and spiritual life do not wholly die in him. There was some good present in his heart. He suffers terribly after murder of Duncan. So he was not happy with murders. He was unhappy. He had a very guilty conscience. He suffered all and all. And after murder, King Duncan, when Macbeth returns with a guilty feeling of a person who has done wrong, he even fears that he may not be able to sleep hereafter. He does not think of wasting his hand washing or getting the night gone on, but of his inability to say Amen while learning by hearing an awkward sound of God blesses. So he was very guilty at his conscience. He strives from crime to crime through his soul, never ceases to bar his advances with his strokes of terror or to clamor in his ears. So all the time there was clamor in his ear that you are a murderer, you have destroyed sleep, you will never be able to get sleep and all that. That he is murdering his peace and casting away his eternal jewels. So when the murder is done, Macbeth goes mad, mad with horror. He hears fearful cries in air, like sleep no more, Glamis hath murder sleep and all that. Now, let's begin. Where we were. Thus, we can say that the forces of moral and spiritual life do not wholly die in him. After killing Duncan, Macbeth tells his wife that will all great Neptune's ocean wash this bloody clean from my head. This shows that moral is still alive in him, and he was good at his heart. Now, tragic hero. About quality of tragic hero. Macbeth fits the role of a tragic hero because he is born to nobility and he has good character. But his fatal flaw, his ambition, leads to his death at the end of the play. It also pushes him to commit many atrocities, including murder, as he falls deeper and deeper into darkness. Some characteristics of his characters are not perfect example of tragic hero, but overall he fits in this archetype of being a tragic hero. So he was a tragic hero. Now let's conclude this description and this character sketch of Macbeth. We are pained to see such a fighter as a Macbeth moving towards his doom. We are not happy with his doom because we have somehow we are sympathetic about sympathetic for we have sympathy for Macbeth, and his death make us see a man dying heroically. Macbeth's heroism modifies the tragic intensity of the play by making us love him. Thus, the tragedy is made bearable to us. We don't detest Macbeth, but we somehow we like him. So we were not happy with his downfall. So this was the character sketch of Macbeth, and hope you like it. Please share, subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.